Darth Vader is the most iconic Sith Lord ever created, but he's not the most terrifying, not even close. Today, I'm breaking down every Sith Lord more terrifying than Vader and explaining exactly why, starting with the one who built the entire system. Vader lived inside. Darth Bane. Here's the thing about Darth Bane. He wasn't the strongest Sith who ever lived. He was something far more dangerous. He was the one who rewrote the rules entirely. Around 1032 BBY, the Brotherhood of Darkness was wiped out. Every single member except him. And instead of mourning, Bane looked at the smoldering wreckage of 1,000 Sith Lords who couldn't stop fighting each other long enough to beat the Jedi and said, yeah, this whole system is broken. So he invented the rule of two. One master to embody power, one apprentice to crave it. That single decision governed the Sith for the next 1,000 years, all the way until Sidious dismantled the Republic from the inside. Vader followed a system. Bane invented it. But Bane wasn't just a philosopher with a cape. His Force lightning killed on contact. At the end of his life, he performed the ritual of power, literally dragging lightning from the sky into his own body, which is, not ideal for anyone standing nearby. But if Bane was the architect, the next Sith Lord on this list was the Wrecking Ball, Darth Malak. Malak didn't earn the title of Dark Lord. He stole it. While his master Revan was distracted, Malak fired on Revan's own flagship, seizing power in one of the most brutal betrayals in Sith history. And here's the thing. He was worse at the job in every way that mattered, except cruelty. In that department, Malak was a prodigy. He was proficient in Sith sorcery, particularly Force lightning, which he used liberally during torture sessions and drawn-out duels. But his real party trick involved the Starforge, an ancient automated shipyard built by the Rakatan Infinite Empire roughly 30,000 years before the Republic even existed. Malak captured Jedi from the destroyed Dantooine Enclave and fed them directly into the station. Let that sink in for a second. The Starforge could harness Force sensitives and channel their energy into a single subject. Malak used living Jedi as literal batteries, blurring the line between person and machine in a way that's genuinely body horror. He didn't rewrite the rules of the Sith like Bane did. He just broke everything in reach and plugged people into a wall socket to keep going. Revan came back, and without his ancient power source, Malak crumbled. But if Malak's cruelty was loud and visceral, the next Sith Lord on this list operated so quietly that even death itself didn't notice what he was doing. Darth Plagueis. Most Sith Lords want to conquer the galaxy. Plagueis wanted to conquer biology. He was a Moon Dark Lord who looked at the Force and saw something nobody else did. A system that could be hacked. While every other Sith was busy swinging lightsabers, Plagueis was in his lab trying to crack the source code of life itself. Here's the thing. According to his own apprentice, Darth Sidious, Plagueis could use the Force to influence midichlorians to create life. Not preserve it, not extend it, create it. He wasn't studying the Force like a monk. He was dissecting it like a scientist, convinced that immortality wasn't some mystical reward, but a biological puzzle waiting to be solved. But here's where it gets genuinely terrifying. His grand experiment to create a new Force-sensitive life form may have accidentally resulted in the conception of Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One. Vader might literally owe his existence to a Plagueis experiment gone wrong. Where Vader served as an instrument of the Force, Plagueis tried to become the guy controlling the instrument panel. His research implied that midichlorians could be manipulated to bend biological existence to a dark side practitioner's will. His failure was more catastrophic than most Sith Lords' greatest successes, which is, not ideal. But if Plagueis was the mad scientist of the Sith, the next entry was something far more unpredictable. A war hero who burned the galaxy down on purpose. Darth Revan. Most Sith Lords on this list are terrifying because of what they did. Revan is terrifying because of what was done to him. Here's the thing. Revan wasn't some naive Jedi who got tricked into falling. He looked at the dark side with open eyes and said, yeah, I'll take that. Then he built a Sith empire so powerful it nearly erased the Galactic Republic from existence. Force storms, Force lightning, Force healing, precognition. His lightsaber skills alone were legendary, but combined with that arsenal, he was a one-man extinction event. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. The Jedi captured him, wiped his mind, and rebuilt his entire identity from scratch. scratch. They didn't defeat Revan, they deleted him. Then they pointed whatever was left at the Sith and called it redemption. Think about that for a second. If someone reprograms you into being a good person, are you actually good? Or are you just a puppet wearing someone else's face? The Jedi essentially killed the real Revan and replaced him with a version they found more convenient. That's not a redemption arc. That's an identity horror story. Vader's moral journey is clean. Fall, suffer, redeem, die. Revan's is a philosophical nightmare with zero resolution. And that ambiguity is what makes him linger in your head long after you stop thinking about him. But if erased identity disturbs you, wait until you meet the Sith Lord, who survived for over 1,000 years by refusing to stay dead. Darth Krayt. Most Sith Lords are terrifying because of what they can do. Krayt is terrifying because of how long he's been doing it. Born a Shared Het, this man served as a Jedi Master and Clone Wars general. That's the prequel era. He was still actively killing people centuries later. After Order 66, Het didn't just survive, he reinvented himself. He fell to the dark side, founded an entirely new Sith order called the One Sith, and spent literal centuries on Korriban orchestrating the fall of the Galactic Alliance and the restoration of the Galactic Empire. Most people can't plan a week ahead. This guy was running schemes that took hundreds of years to pay off, and he was alive to see every single one of them land. But here's where it gets ridiculous. Even as an old, sick man, Krayt cut through 4 Imperial Knights like training dummies. He claimed to have killed thousands since the Clone Wars, and honestly, the math checks out. Telekinesis, Sith lightning, force drain, memory manipulation, force rage, astral projection, the ability to physically strike beings like Abeloth, who didn't even fully exist in normal reality. He had all of it. Then there's transfer essence, which let him hop his consciousness into new bodies, granting him functional immortality. In his prime, he could go toe-to-toe with Luke Skywalker and Abeloth in direct combat. The same Luke Skywalker widely considered the most powerful Jedi to ever live. But if Krayt is the long game personified, the next Sith on this list turned psychological warfare into an art form. Darth Zana. Most Sith Lords want to overpower you. Zana didn't need to. She'd just make you lose your mind first. Born Reign on the planet Somov Rit, she became Darth Bane's first apprentice in the newly reformed Sith Order. Her entire purpose was singular: carry the rule of 2 forward. Prove that Bane's system actually worked. Here's the thing. She didn't just prove it, she made it look easy. Zana mastered the doctrine of the ancient Sith magician Freeden Nad, which gave her access to sorcerous practices most Sith had forgotten existed. Her magic could drive people completely insane with fear. She could disguise herself and others as normal Jedi, walking right through enemy territory without raising a single alarm. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. A single spell she cast violently disrupted psychometric analysis a full decade later. 10 years, and the Force itself was still flinching from what she did. That's not power, that's a stain on reality. Her lightsaber skills were equally terrifying, just quieter. She mastered a defensive style so instinctive she could fend off any opponent indefinitely with minimal effort, just waiting for them to tire out or make one fatal mistake. She didn't need to beat you. She just needed you to beat yourself. Zana eventually trained Darth Cognis as her own apprentice, ensuring the chain survived. Bane built the system. Zana was the first test, and she passed without breaking a sweat. But if Zana proved the Sith could survive through secrecy and sorcery, the next Sith Lord on this list proved they could survive through something far more terrifying: the complete refusal to die, Darth Endedu. Every Sith Lord on this list carries the title Darth, but Endedu might be the reason that word exists in the first place. Known as the immortal God King of Prakith, Endedu reigned during or after the 100-Year Darkness, and there's strong evidence he was the original bearer of the Darth title. Every Sith Lord who came after him was essentially wearing his brand, but the title isn't what makes him terrifying. What makes him terrifying is what he figured out. Endedu created a Sith holocron containing one of the most closely guarded secrets in Sith history: transfer essence. The ability to rip your consciousness out of your dying body and shove it into a new vessel. Functional immortality. Death becomes a minor inconvenience, like a flat tire. Here's where it gets dark though. Endedu was so paranoid about his own people stealing this knowledge that he hoarded every scrap of Sith lore he could find. He didn't share, he didn't teach, he monopolized everything, using knowledge itself as a weapon against potential usurpers. The only thing this immortal God King feared was the people standing next to him, and he was right to be afraid. His fellow Sith Lords eventually betrayed betrayed and overthrew him, forcing him to flee Moraband entirely. But even in exile, his holocron survived. It found its way to the keep on Prakith, where it continued whispering secrets to anyone desperate enough to listen. And Dedu established the single most terrifying precedent in Sith history, that death is optional. And if you think that idea stayed buried with him, wait until you hear about the fallen Jedi who took it even further. Freedon Nad. Most Sith Lords fall to the dark side gradually. Freedon Nad sprinted toward it, and his first step was murdering his own Jedi Master, Mata Tremaine, and walking away from the Order without looking back. He was a prodigy on Ossus, one of the most gifted students the Jedi had seen in generations, and he repaid that investment with a lightsaber through his teacher, which is, not ideal. But here's the thing. Nad didn't just leave the Jedi. He tracked down the ancient Sith Lord Nagasado on Yavin 4, apprenticed under his spirit, drained him of every scrap of forbidden knowledge, and then killed him too. Apparently, that was just his thing. Then he flew to Onderon, used sorcery to crush the existing power structure, and installed himself as king of the capital city Iziz. For nearly 4 decades, he ruled openly as both monarch and Sith Lord, not hiding in the shadows, not pulling strings from behind a curtain, sitting on a throne, wielding dark side mastery and political power simultaneously. Almost no other Sith even attempted that combination. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. Freedon Nad died, and he simply did not care. His spirit refused to leave Onderon. For centuries after his physical death, his presence lingered over the planet like a stain that wouldn't wash out. Generations were born, lived, and died under the weight of a dead man's will. Where Endedu treated immortality like a science project, Nad treated it like a haunting. He proved that death wasn't an ending for a sufficiently powerful Sith, it was just a change in format. And that idea inspired every Sith who came after him to ask the same question: why stop at one lifetime? But if Nad's ghost haunted a single planet, wait until you hear about the Sith Lord who dominated an entire empire while he was still breathing. Marka Ragnos. Here's something people forget about the Sith. They weren't always two weirdos in matching robes whispering about the dark side in a basement somewhere. There was a time when the Sith were a civilization, a real one, with armies, territories, political structures, the whole thing. And the man who held all of it together at its absolute peak was Marka Ragnos. Ragnos was a half-breed Dark Lord born before 5100 BBY, which makes him so ancient that most Sith on this list wouldn't exist for thousands of years after his death. He clawed his way to power by defeating a rival Dark Lord named Simus in single combat, and from that point forward, he ruled the entire Sith Empire for over a century. Not a decade, not a generation. Over 100 years of unbroken, unchallenged dominance. And he didn't just sit on a throne looking intimidating. Ragnos conducted brutal campaigns against Sith enemies, while simultaneously running one of the most sophisticated political operations in galactic history. He pitted rivals against each other, ensured nobody could consolidate enough power to threaten him, and maintained absolute control through raw force ability and sheer personal charisma. The guy was recognized as one of the most powerful force users in the combined history of both the Sith and the Jedi. But here's the part that really sells how terrifying he was. The moment he died, the entire empire fractured, succession disputes tore it apart. His personal power wasn't just an asset to the Sith Empire, it was the only thing holding it together. One man's death collapsed a civilization. That's not leadership, that's gravity. But if Ragnos proved that sheer willpower could hold an empire together, the next Sith on this list proved it could hold a broken body together, indefinitely. Darth Sion. Most Sith Lords cheat death through rituals, holocrons, or essence transfer. Darth Sion just refused. His body is literally falling apart, held together by nothing but hatred and the dark side of the Force, and he cannot die. That's it. That's the whole method. No ancient technique, no technology. Just a man too angry to stop existing. Sion was a Sith marauder during the Great Sith War, who suffered injuries so catastrophic that his body should have failed completely. Instead of accepting death, he embraced the agony, channeling every ounce of pain and hatred into a dark side connection powerful enough to override biological death itself. His flesh cracked, his bones shattered, his skin turned gray and split open like dried earth, and he kept going. They called him the Lord of Pain because suffering was literally his fuel source. The more his body deteriorated, created, the stronger his connection to the dark side became. It was a feedback loop with no off switch. Pain feeds hatred, hatred feeds the Force holds the body together, the body continues to decay, decay causes more pain, forever. He served alongside Darth Nihilus and Darth Traya in the Sith Triumvirate, placing his power among the most formidable in the post-Malak era. But here's the thing, Sion wasn't defeated through superior Force power or a better lightsaber technique. The Jedi exile Mitra Surik talked him into dying. She convinced him that his endless suffering wasn't strength, it was weakness. And Sion, after decades of agony, agreed. He let go. But if Sion's body horror disturbs you, wait until you meet the thing that made him look functional by comparison. Darth Nihilus. Up until now, we've been talking about Sith Lords. Powerful ones, terrifying ones, but still people with plans and goals and something resembling a personality. Nihilus is not that. Nihilus is a natural disaster wearing a mask. He started as a man. We know that much. He was caught in the activation of the mass shadow generator on Malachor 5, a super weapon that tore a wound in the Force itself. That wound didn't just hurt him, it fractured his soul and turned him into something parasitic, a thing that needed to consume life force energy just to keep existing. And the hunger never stopped. It only got worse. His Force drain didn't work like normal Sith abilities. It operated on a planetary scale. Nihilus could descend on a world and strip every living thing on it of its life force, leaving behind a silent dead husk, an entire planet just gone. And every time he fed, the craving intensified. Eventually, the hunger wasn't something he had. It was something he was. It controlled him completely. He didn't even communicate like a person anymore. He spoke in this haunting, unintelligible language that bypassed sound entirely and touched victims' minds directly. His physical body was decaying around him while his consciousness projected outward through the Force, existing beyond flesh in a way that made his actual form almost irrelevant. When he was finally destroyed at Telos 4, his essence collapsed. All that remained were his robes, his lightsaber, and that mask. But here's the thing. The mask wasn't just a relic, it functioned as a nexus of dark side corruption so profound that wearing it invited the exact same consuming fate. His hunger was tattooed into the Force itself, like a scar that refused to heal. But if a planet-eating void sounds like the ceiling of Sith horror, you haven't met the one who performed the same trick with full conscious intent. Darth Vader. Every Sith Lord we've talked about so far had a limit, a weakness, a moment where the galaxy could breathe. Vitiate didn't have one. Born Tenebrae in 5113 BBY as the illegitimate son of Sith Lord Dramath, this kid was torturing and massacring thousands on his homeworld by the age of 10 years old. Most children are figuring out how to tie their shoes. Tenebrae was figuring out how to break an entire planet's will, and he was just getting started. See, if Darth Nihilus was a hurricane, mindless, consuming, unstoppable, then Vitiate was that same hurricane, except it had a 1500-year plan and a personal grudge against everything alive. He didn't just consume, he strategized, he built empires, plural, he wore different names across different eras, Tenebrae, Sith Emperor, Immortal Emperor, Valkorian, each one a new mask for the same ancient intelligence pulling strings behind galactic affairs for over a millennium. But here's the thing that puts him above everyone else on this list. In 4999 BBY, Vitiate performed the ritual of Nathema. He mentally enslaved over 8,000 Sith Lords simultaneously. 8,000. Not soldiers, not civilians. Sith Lords. He bent every single one of them to his will, absorbed their collective strength, and channeled it through a 10-day ceremony that froze an entire planet in dark side sorcery. When it was over, every living thing on Nathema's surface was dead. The Force itself had been ripped from the planet like someone tearing a page out of reality. What remained was a permanent wound, a place where the Force simply didn't exist anymore. And Vitiate walked away immortal. That's not a Sith Lord. That's a force of nature with a 15th century attention span and zero intention of ever stopping. He didn't just want to rule the galaxy. He wanted to consume it, rebuild it, and consume it again. Every other Sith on this list reached for power. Vitiate reached for everything, and for over 1,000 years, nobody could stop him. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.